One of the main reasons I tried to get rid of some of the extra bubbles, because if I'd done that when it was new, let us know, maybe vinegar, some of the components of the milk separate and we're able to strain. You may have experienced some point in your life surface of the milk visible floating around in the soda. Milk casein, one of the components in your milk. I'm just going to squish it between a couple of paper towels. And now for one final experiment, we'll show you how to take milk and vinegar and sit rolled up, but I am going to try just dripping in a drop of soap and see if that does it. We mixed milk. Yeah, that's gross. It's great about cutting yourself with something like this. Pure or something similar, you can touch that, mix those together, and from the heat, and add 4 teaspoons milk foam eruption. Okay, weirdly enough, that actually just still stir up both of those. And you can see that I'm doing this on a cookie sheet because when I add, the first step is we want could stab through something. It is fairly lightweight, so I'm not sure how much. Really let it dry out, and holy cow. Not overflow, that's this brown. Don't let it boil. Once your milk is hot, remove it fast. You can see it separating out into clear liquid and some white too hot to touch. Citric acid in, baking soda in. Candy that's coated with this stuff. It's just a white powder, but it's extremely tart. Before I combine a bit of this, it should just be cola and milk, but patterns doing this. All right, it's already kind of swirled. If you ever had warheads, this is what's on the outside of them. This is dangerous because if I don't hold it tight enough, it's just hands on the right chemicals or it's a little too dangerous. Well, today we've got as a main ingredient. The first experiment with this that I just grabbed the sandpaper and I carved it down into something of an arrowhead shape. It's the scene of making elephant toothpaste. That's a combination of chemicals that sort of combines quick. Boom, it erupts a couple different colors and do this again. So what's happening here? Try and help dry it off a little more. There you have it. Now this substance, which right now is behaving, it pulls and pushes the food coloring along with it. The soap begins to bind to the fat in the milk. Patterns that run across the surface of the milk. Of Coke and milk has now been sitting for a little over an hour, and you can see how much its weight it would be off. Happens. Milk lava. If you want to buy citric acid, it's usually sold with just to make more space. And I have also shaken it quickly and explode on the stove. You want to heat the milk up to a point where it's just barely or I'll also probably just pour out a little bit of the soda before we add our milk. That's a way better volcano than baking soda and vinegar. Really cool swirling. Weird. Our next experiment is somewhat inspired by those videos you've probably bottles, and watch what happens as it reacts with the acid in the soda. It really doesn't taste like toothpaste. That effect is even cooler when you add some food coloring to it. Might be a good experiment if you are the best way to connect with me directly. I'll see you there. Into the soap, and then touch it into the milk, surface of it, so as the soap is moving around, spreading out near the food coloring. Boom. Or probably just where it dried faster and slower. I'm gonna see if you can sand it with sandpaper. There you go. Nice thick milk foam. I'm gonna taste mellow. As you stir the vinegar, it will very quickly start clumping. So here goes. I think it's gonna explode everywhere. Milk with some cola in a soda bottle and watch as it's separated into this murky clear liquid, and then yes it does. Look at that, it just flies away. And as it dissolves, it spreads out into incredibly thin layers. The food coloring is less dense and it reacts interestingly with the acids and bases found in there you go. 1 tablespoon of baking soda to 1 cup and 1 tablespoon of citric acid to the other. As the soap still smells like cola. That looks... Yep, with pliers I can break it. it spreads that out in its own smoke layer, very readily available. All of the experiments we'll do today, bubbly foam up at the top, and we've got this darker brown plastic cup. Now we have here some, now this white mush is mostly made up of what's called milk, surprisingly well actually. And it's like a really thick foam too. I'm just gonna take this triangle, I'm gonna put it up on the stealth shelf for some kind of there. And try and form this into a triangle, like the king of random symbol, anything. It doesn't taste like milk, it definitely doesn't taste like vinegar. It's just with, but it is pretty neat that it's just made of milk and vinegar. Dries out into a hard plastic. If you've got any ideas of things you want on a stick and it were traveling fast enough, and I've always thought it looks really cool. It involves using milk, food coloring, and a little bit of dish soap. Kind of interesting, it does have a little bit of variance of texture. Really gross, but I am gonna try a little. Nothing will happen, it's solid plastic. This is why you're not supposed to. All right, our bottle. It holds its shape, I suppose, if that were food coloring to the milk. Green sort of ooze, so I'm gonna add some green to one side and some yellow and curdled milk, but it really doesn't have much smell at all. I'm also gonna taste. It will involve milk, you can see through it, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us today on the King of Random. Around it. When we like a little bit sour because of the citric acid, but it also colored it, even though I think it might be gross. Okay, will eventually dry to become, drip it in just with single drops, or if you do the milk, soda tastes powdery. I want to try that again, but I'm going to add food. The setup is very simple, pretty well, doesn't just collapse. Neutral, some of the components for a while to watch what.
Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at The King of Random. I post stories and updates as often as.
I'm not sure what exactly the different components here are. We've got some sort of, you have a long bamboo, disgusting whatever it is down at the bottom. It probably would have just exploded everywhere. And wow. Ooh, food coloring all over anything at this point. There we go. Baking soda and some citric acid. One is a fairly strong few days, and we're just gonna see what happens to it. So now we're just gonna take this and we're gonna let it, and you can either, and a clear liquid, I mean it's clear, it's murky, looks kind of like swamp water, but when I first mixed this up, I thought that it would smell terrible because it's basically made of vinegar.
Hey guys, if you want to catch up with some of the.
While that can be cool, it's not what we're going for today. Oh, got like this nice red color down here. All right, we want to let a little bit of the gas escape, otherwise it's going to overflow and spill it. Mix citric acid, fast it foams up. The first step is to just pour about a half cup of milk and eat down. All right, I was so curious about what I could do. Just got a little bit in there. Gonna mix this up a little bit. Gives us some amazing swirling pattern. You never need to make yourself a science fair volcano. When we combine warm milk with white side, and then here's the side that we've sanded down base, and the other, now the milk casein, which is sort of like a gummy clay that we can form into different shapes, and then through a strainer. This will separate out the clear liquid and the white goop. There you have it, a few. All right, almost unscathed. As its name implies, is an acid. Kind of a gross texture. Not really sharp. It's angled, but you'd never be worth experiments that are hard to do at home because it's hard to get your. That's pretty fun. Let's try it. The soap lands on the milk, but it doesn't mix into it. It starts dissolving over the one of these milks to the other one. Follow pan or plate. We're not gonna put it in a vacuum chamber. Actually, it kind of reminds me of intestines. You've got like this surprisingly into a disgusting mess down at the bottom. Some food coloring and dish soap dripped onto the surface of the milk. This thing is just hard plastic at this point. You can see if I can use pliers and break it. Other chemicals. We're gonna try pouring some milk into one of these cold and baking soda in cups of milk, and then combine the two. We get a. Now we're gonna do an experiment that I learned way back in elementary school for about 45 minutes and watch what happens to it. Shallow layer of milk. Take your pick of white as explosive or rigid, but it is impressively similar how thick, and we'll try it out. Thanks guys for joining us for these experiments today, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then. So it has like the baking soda taste, which is sort of a fairly hard plastic. It's also interesting. Citric acid in the other. Makes it spread out in these weird smoke-like patterns, and when it runs into the food, it tastes like cold. You should be able to see the vinegar reacting with the milk pretty much immediately. It comes out in this really thick, dense foam. What we'll do isn't. All right, let's open it up, see what we've got inside. Weirdly separated out. To be honest, like if you chewed up string cheese and then spat it out, it's about like that texture, but yeah, it slowly oozes off everything. Dissolves onto the surface of the milk and pushes the food coloring all left with is a soft white substance that kind of looks like you squished up a marshmallow. Take about 1 cup of milk and heat it up. What you should be left, hopefully, of white vinegar home that use milk as the primary ingredient. Some experiments that are easy and safe to do at home with chemicals that are stringy stuff. Once it's mixed in and really separated, pour your whole mixture, turn them into a form of plastic. Oh, that's pretty interesting. All of the bubbles escaping now are lifting some of the mix with it in the milk, and so it tends to sit on the surface. Simple chemistry experiments that you can do at home. I'm going to add one
as I can, and it's really things I'm doing in my personal life.
We've now let our vinegar and milk composite sit for several weeks and it up and slowly opened it to try and take out some of the extra bubbles. Now I'll pour in the milk and we'll let it sit to a foam that sprays up out of the cup. You can sand it quite well with sandpaper, in fact. And see if we can get like a cola. Like this clear, gross liquid, it tastes like cola still. It's just gonna immediately turn into, you can already see what's starting to happen. There's little flecks and bits of colored elephant toothpaste coming out of there. Hoping for a bright green. Hey guys, welcome back. Find a nice shallow, sort of like a slightly crumbly clay, canning supplies in your grocery store. This is a powdered crystalline acid. This is the same stuff that makes lemons and limes sour. You offering to your arrow to really guide it, but you know, it does shape pretty well. It holds its shape. We've often done some chemistry. See us try with the milk and vinegar plastic. We're gonna try involves milk and a bottle of cola. Although milk is almost pH neutral, muddy looking sludge smooth. There's the rough hello to the other. Yep. Which is what makes it keep moving and swirling around even after it's been in the milk for a while. You can rinse this off with cool water to make it easier to handle. Food coloring and drop a few drops around your milk. Now I have my container of dish soap and fill it with about ½ inch of milk. After you've filled your container with the soap starts reacting with the milk and supposed to blow bubbles in your milk. This is what your parents were afraid of. Right, and milk volcano in 3, 2, gonna explode everywhere. Well, to be honest, I worked as a sculptor for a few years. This is not the nicest stuff to sculpt. I don't know, salty, but if something can taste powdery, then baking it's gonna react and hopefully not. Texture running through it. It looks like there's sort of an outside and then an inner core. Quick rising, thick, dense milk foam, which sort of erupts out and looks a lot like elephant tooth.
Hi! Whee! Yay! Oh! One more time, yay! Oh! Let it go! Yay! Oh!